Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode. I wanted to introduce Malcolm Friedberg, who's here to chat with us today. Malcolm, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, for the sake of everybody who's watching, listening, can you introduce yourself, tell them a bit about what you've done in the past and what you're up to today?
Sure, happy to. So I'm Malcolm Friedberg. Background is 20 plus years in marketing, demand gen. Cut my teeth really early on in the space. There was a particular software called Eloqua. In fact, we talked about knowing Mark Organ, the founder, back in the day. That was in 2000, and I was customer number 50 at Eloqua and really just rode the wave of marketing automation in the early days. I was helping VCs understand like the space, built my own agency with clients like Dell, Lenovo, Intel, Salesforce, built technology, became a CMO for a lot of startups here in the Valley. And obviously in the last couple years have seen the whole space blow up and am very curious to see. I'm sure we'll talk about, what reinvention of marketing and sales looks like. But, have been a marketing sales BD guy my whole career.
Okay, awesome. No, and I think that's well. I think you sort of set it up well when you talk about a space that has undergone. I don't know if any space has undergone more change. Some would argue, software development, some of something, but everything is changing. So let's talk about the reinvention of sales and marketing and how the two of them go together. What that looked like, I say back in the day when you were on the leading edge of where marketing was headed with Eloqua marketing automation in that world, and then where it is now from your
Yeah,
perspective.
I mean, it's funny because I think back, there was a lot of structure, there was technology, there was processes, there was a playbook. It's all around MQLs, and you had white papers and webinars, and you collected email addresses, and you sent emails, and when people responded or showed some buying intent, you sent that to SDRs, then they banked phones, and then those people got further qualified, and it was very kind of structured and formulaic. And that whole model is just completely blown up. I spent the last year and a half as a sort of startup CRO in a company in the logistics space, and nobody answers phone calls. Nobody certainly responds to cold emails, even LinkedIn messages. I think I had like a 1% response
No.
rate. And so it's really a new world order. You've got to figure out how do you get people's attention. And that's really what's at a premium is people's attention. And it's really, really hard to do. And all those processes and the structure and the infrastructure that was used just doesn't work anymore.
So you mentioned getting people's attention, which I think is I think it's always been important in marketing, right? Always sales and marketing, always. But now it seems to be at a whole new level of premium. A lot of folks will say, won't using AI fix all of this? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think AI is a great amplifier, but you still need the fundamentals, right? You still need to know who you're selling to, what you're selling, what your value proposition is. And even if you have all those things, how do I get through the clutter to get somebody's attention? I mean, if somebody's actively looking for a solution, okay, then you have a little bit of a leg up. But if somebody's not looking for a solution, if you're selling something that's new or you have a different take on an existing solution, it's just hard to get people to sort of pull their heads out of the sand or whatever they're doing
Yeah.
and pay attention. So that's a real challenge. And again, the ways that people looked to find information before has changed. You used to be able to produce a white paper and people would be willing to take a look at it because the quality of the content was there. Thought leadership had some value. I mean, certainly with AI, it's so easy to crank out content. Like that's not going to work anymore. I mean, maybe if you have a big brand, but quite frankly, look at the big brands. I mean, look at Gartner. Gartner's lost, I don't know what the number is, but like 70% of its value as a company because AI has basically replaced it as, a way to acquire information and learn quickly about what's happening in an industry. So I really think that we're just at the beginning. I mean, it's really unprecedented, the upheaval that we're looking at. But I think ultimately it comes down to the fundamental thing of, I get your attention, and AI doesn't particularly help with that. It can get you in front of more people, but not necessarily with a way that's going to sort of incent them to engage more.
Okay, so I hear you. There's a bit of when I say doom and gloom, I mean it in the context of it's challenging. It's more challenging than it's ever been. You talk about the difficulty or the focus around how do I get in front of people, the right people. So let's talk a little bit about let's expand on the concept of the fundamentals and leveraging the fundamentals to kind of both break through the clutter, one, and also, really engage with and try to work with clients. So work with potential clients or customers. What things have you seen that have worked really well or have worked better that you've tried?
Well, probably the most successful hack that I deployed was trying to build an advisory board. So leveraging existing relationships to
Interesting.
get in front of people. Because, I mean, again, even assuming you have, a clear value proposition, you know who your ICP is, you know what the pain points are, and you've got a solution to address those pain points. Unless I can get 5 minutes of Jamie's time, it's really hard for me to, find an audience that's willing to listen.
Okay.
And so I think, obviously COVID sort of exacerbated the the situation around people educating themselves, buying groups, just doing all the education online. And so sales, sort of marketing, I should say, has had even less impact because people are not willing to engage until like they're super educated and then they really want to talk to a salesperson. So what's come out of that now is that I see more activity around events and dynamics where people can leverage personal relationships and kind of human contact to be able to at least decide if even a conversation is worthy or valid. I've always felt, and particularly in some industries in particular, like dealing with CTOs and technology oriented people, that validation from a peer is critical. I think marketers as a group, and maybe true for salespeople as well, are a little bit more open to look at new things, but there always have been groups, technical buyers, that I've felt like it's super hard to get their attention unless you are kind of one of their brethren.
Yeah.
But, whether you have the credibility or not, I mean, I always liked selling to marketers because I could talk to them with I've walked a mile in your shoe kind of an approach. But still, like I wouldn't think about trying to call on a marketer cold. I mean, they're not going to take my call, even with kind of my background. The only way to get in front of people is, hey, Jamie, do you know so and so? Can you refer me in?
Wow. Uh, so challenging, so much harder, like you're talking about. I do want to go back to one of the first places that you went to was around sales and marketing. And I just want to go back for a second and talk about the relationship between the two and how has that changed. You talked about, someone's done all their research, they're ready to go, they're thinking about it, and then they're ready to talk to a salesperson if they get there. So to your point about the relationship piece. So like there's work that a marketer can do, but if it's relationship building, how much of that feels like sales and how much of that feels like true relationship building? I want to talk about are they starting to overlap the two or are they separating more? What do you see there?
Well, so I'm kind of bearish, quite frankly, on B2B marketing. I think B2B marketing could go the way of the dinosaurs. I really do, because I think what you can do with AI in terms of developing an ICP and a go-to-market strategy and messaging, it gets you 80% of the way there. It doesn't get you 100% of the way there, but it definitely gets you 80% of the way there. So an experienced marketer who has spent time in the industry can definitely provide value in that 20%. And that 20% is important. But for everyone else, for an average B2B marketer or somebody who doesn't have time in a particular industry and is kind of, approaching it from a little bit more of a generic perspective, like you can easily get replaced by, just good enough. And so I telescope out if I'm a CEO running an organization, I need salespeople because they close and they touch people and they get it across the goal line, and that will always be valuable. But getting it to the goal line, if I have an AI native go to market strategy with agents doing the outreach, especially as these agents kind of mimic human interactions more effectively and get more dynamic, I don't see a scenario where that's good for marketers. I think that more and more of that kind of early conversation, understanding what content. I mean, I can envision a universe where AI is generating the content, creating the website, telling me based on, site visitors and different types of advertising campaigns, what's working, like on a weekly basis, reformulating my messaging, redeveloping my content, and it just being like a living, breathing organism that is completely void of having, an active marketer. Or maybe you have somebody again who's a domain expert who's kind of kibitzing in that process.
Yeah.
But that's pretty potent in terms of being able to be that dynamic and that flexible and make those kinds of changes. I mean, that's really kind of like a B2C model, where they're like constantly optimizing and applying that to a
Yeah.
B2B framework.
Yeah, no. I find that fascinating. So, and there's all the marketers who are watching this right now and going, cracking open a bottle of whiskey or something else and going, "Wow, this is not pretty." What I wanted to do was actually, but I do still. So I'm still a believer that, yeah, and I think you said it, the right marketers can find the 20%, right? And that 20%, that difference can be huge for a company. So tell me what do you think that looks like? So you gave you gave us a little bit, but I go a
Yeah.
little further there.
Yeah. So I think that marketers have kind of left some, I don't know, capital on the table by not contributing to the strategic part of the business.
Interesting.
Like my experience with marketers they're smart. Like as a cohort, marketers are thoughtful and intelligent. And if they sort of lean into the business, can contribute to the strategic direction. Because if you think about who sits around the table, right? That's not going to come from the sales guy. Like they're transactional. They, from my perspective, they don't have a great 30,000 foot view. There are occasional sales guys who kind of think that way, but by and large, that's not kind of a cloth that they're cut from. CFO is not going to do it. Maybe you have a product guy that has some sort of a vision. So it's really the CEO that's doing that. And I think marketing has both the license and the opportunity to lean in and contribute to sort of articulating the vision of where we want to go. So I think sort of upping the level of one's game and being a strategic contributor is absolutely important. And I think really being hand in glove with your salesperson to understand what they need to be successful. I mean, again, I've spent my career as a marketer. Only in the last couple of years have I worn a sales hat, and it's been humbling. It's hard. And without the support of, all of the things that we do as marketers, the content, the advertising, the messaging, you're basically left to sort of do it on your own. So I think if you really sort of work well with your sales guy, there's still a lot of value you can add. And what that means to me is like, potentially being on sales calls, understanding what the objections are, being creative, thinking outside the box and, hey, how are we going to overcome this, attention, deficit that exist for getting people to pay attention to your particular message.
So it's so fascinating to me that, what I've just heard from you, and I think if I frame it, it's there's a world where more of marketing is moving down the e-commerce style path, right? It's like learn transaction data numbers. You talked about agents, more and more of that, and the skill set to be able to do that. And then it's who are the folks that are going to sort of build that and then move way up, like into call it truly strategic sales and marketing, which is a different conversation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you go back to your first point, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like the super sophisticated marketing organizations had, data analysts and were really analyzing information and applying those learnings to change what they were doing. Understanding the, buying patterns, understanding how people engaged, understanding which content performed better. Now you can just do that if you've built the right kind of system. AI can do that for you instantly every single day. So that value add is completely removed from the domain of a marketer because technology can do that for you. So in that regard, I think kind of the real time, I mean, you'll never have as much data as obviously you have in a B2C environment just because, the numbers aren't
Right.
comparable. But whatever, you launch a campaign and you can see in hours and certainly in days, hey, which even creating like A/B testing, was kind of a lift. I mean, you should be able to do ABCD testing now. And within, a day or 2 days or however much time gives you enough data to be able to then iterate and optimize and continue to do that.
So actually so here's the place I'm trying to poke into, right? Which is, look, if you're in the historically, if when people look at the both businesses and marketing, they either come from a more pure, call it marketing background. I mean, again, that's not the case everywhere, but across the broader scope of the U.S., that's kind of the way I would look at it. And or they're very technical, and meaning they understand it. What you're describing in terms of building out that capability and that system, given where it's at, given how early it is, who's doing that? How do you know what should be in that? What does that look like versus your role? Like, so I'm talking about the senior marketer. How does that look? How does someone piece all that together? It feels very complicated.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think, it's a little bit of people are throwing up a lot of stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Everyone and their mother is building agents, and now some people are building agencies that leverage, sort of ecosystems of agents, an agentic approach. So I think that all needs to be netted out. I mean, I'm about to start an endeavor where I'm being asked to build a go-to-market program that is AI first. And I don't know where to start. Really know what that, I mean, I understand what that means intellectually, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. I mean, I may just go find an agent and say, hey, I'm being asked to do this. Can you do this for me? That sounds, first time cutting my teeth a little bit more safe than trying to like build it from scratch, but maybe we'll build it from scratch. I don't know. I got to go talk to some technology guys. I can tell you the first place I'll go to answer that question is, Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, I need to build a AI first ecosystem for go to market for this company. What should I do? I mean, like that's the thing. That becomes AI becomes your source of even understanding how to solve problems, let alone building the solutions that then solve the problems.
Wow. So, I mean, it's the fascinating sort of philosophical discussion also about like, so when I say this, I don't mean, so it's like, what's your role? Like, if
So
AI is
yes,
doing that, what's your role? And I don't mean it like,
yeah, your role is to set up the guardrails, to, set realistic sort of expectations and goals around what can be accomplished. I mean, I think what's going to very quickly emerge, like in the next 6 months, is marketers who have done this and they'll be at a premium. Like companies will say, hey, have you built an AI first go to market strategy? We want to pay you to come do that. whether you end up being our full-time CMO or not. And I think for a period of time, maybe for a while, there'll be a real opportunity for agencies to do that. You know, in fact, I got a phone call actually earlier this morning with a company that does that. They only focus on businesses that have more than $5 million in revenue because they feel like, there's not enough pain and chaos that the marketer has gone through to be able to leverage their system. But at that point in time, they've figured out how to create an ecosystem of systems and of resources and of it. There are no more playbooks. I mean, that's part of it, is that it's sort of the playbook is be dynamic and use AI to figure out 87% of this, and then use you as the experienced marketer to kind of validate. And yeah, there's the whole hallucination thing, but to me, it's more, it's just that little, that 10% that if you've got domain expertise, you can really provide kind of some key insight to kind of really just crisp up everything. But I think I see a scenario where marketers have smaller marketing departments with agents. I mean, why would you have a content writer in this day and age? I can't imagine going and saying, I'm going to go get a content person. No, I
Yeah.
just can't. And I have hired, when I ran my agency, we had a couple full-time content people, and they're great people, but I feel for them because, I mean, there's no way you can compete with that.
No, well, yeah, speed,
Volume,
volume, and
speed, yeah. And
equality.
again, if it's 80% as good in 10 minutes, like, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's just, maybe even things I think about product marketing, if you can get AI access to enough information, why couldn't it be your best product marketer? And as it gets better and is able to do videos and create other types of content, again, you're just gonna it's gonna be AI marketing in a bottle. And I don't like it. I'm not sort of a fan of, but I am a realist and I do feel like that's the way it's going to go.
I was having this conversation last night with some friends about, sort of the where is it going and what will it look like and what will we do when AI can do everything? What does that mean? And you're painting a picture that's showing it's at least heading down that path. Maybe not for everything yet, but certainly on the marketing, sales and marketing front. Okay, so you've been great. This is fantastic. Any advice that you want to leave with the folks out there who are listening, whether it's a CEO of a company, which, I think a lot of people running B2B startups, or even someone who's in marketing today?
Yeah. So, as a founder, I think if one is a CEO or a founder, you got to get really, really clear about why your product is different and how you can build a moat around it. Because the time to market, the time to develop a product has certainly the time, the barriers have really diminished. It's much easier. You can build entire applications with Claude code. So the things that used to sort of protect or make your business unique are not always gone, but many of them have been removed. So if you're a CEO, that's kind of the lens that I would look at something through. If you're a marketer, I mean, it's stating the obvious. You got to figure out how to leverage AI. I mean, I'm sort of in the, you know, I don't want to say the tail end, but towards approaching the end ish of my career. If I was in my 20s or 30s, I would be quaking in my boots, or I would be like, I'm just going to be a Jedi Knight of AI because that is the tool. And I'm not even sure, it's interesting. I know people who have like sent their kids to study computer science, at college. And it's like, poof, there goes an entire career, like an entire industry. Like who's going to be coding? Nobody's going to be coding. And I think that's the thing marketers have to be mindful of. If you're going to go be a marketer, there'll always be brand and creative stuff. But I'm, might think about taking some public speaking courses and go up there and do some of the sales stuff. It's been funny because again, I literally have been a marketer my entire life and I kind of enjoy the sales stuff. So, which was new to me, but I think you need to be more multifaceted. That's for sure.
Interesting. That's great. That's great. Great advice. Can you tell folks how to get hold of you?
Sure. You can just connect with me on LinkedIn, Malcolm Friedberg, Friedberg. And, always looking to connect with fellow marketers. And if anybody needs some help, happy to pitch in where I can.
Awesome. We'll add some links in the description so people can find you. But Malcolm, thank you so much. This was great. And everyone, thanks for watching, listening, and until next time.